Welcome to the Date Forever podcast. Keep your relationship fueled up with strategies discovered by couples and experts. Because at Fuel Collective, we believe better relationships will equal a better world. You are about to discover specific insights and tools that cost little or nothing to implement to help you date forever. And now, here are your hosts, a couple who always have a half-packed suitcase and a date night in the calendar, Sammy and Nathan Yeager.
Hello and welcome to Date Forever. In this week's episode, we're chatting about what is accountability, the success formula for achieving your goals, and how external help could be the best thing for your relationship. This week, our Fuel Up's a little different because we're not here, we're actually on holidays. So we'll be back to share all of our fueling up in a couple of weeks. But before we jump into the app, we just wanted to remind you of the incredible workshop that we've got coming up.
So from time to time, we host guest workshops where we have special guests come along and teach and share something in their expertise. And we've got one coming up very soon in early May. We have one of our podcast guests returning to do a bit of a deeper dive workshop. So Brian Fretwell is a communications expert. And if you've had a little stalk of him on TikTok, he's got like a butt ton of followers. So we're really looking forward to hanging out with him and talking about how we can have better conversations and how better conversations can lead to a better relationship. So if you ever find yourself like falling into the same sort of patterns of like asking, how was your day? Or, you know, not really getting past the surface level of reporting on what you did each day. And, you know, you're talking about what happened when and where, but not really like how you felt about that or your experiences or your emotions or what you're striving for. This might be a really good opportunity to come and level up some of those communication skills. As you would know, almost all of our guests say that communication is the key to a thriving relationship, and yet we're never taught these skills. We never go to a communication 101 class. So we would like to invite you to a workshop about better communication. It is going to be a power hour. Brian is going to blow our minds. So this workshop is really for couples who are engaged, thinking about getting engaged, or newlywed. Or if this is something in your relationship, an area of your relationship that you know needs some work.
So to grab your tickets, head on over to fuelcollective.com.au/events. But now, here's this week's guest.
Today we've got Darren Finkelstein joining us. He's the accountability guy. He's an international accountability coach, business advisor, mentor, author, speaker, and coach. He works with entrepreneurial business owners and their teams to ensure full accountability. Ultimately, that means they get shit done and deliver on their promises and commitments so they can smash their goals like a pinata. Welcome to the show, Daz.
Hey, Sammy, Nathan, lovely to be here.
It's really nice to have you.
Hey, so accountability coach or the accountability guy, I'm guessing our listeners have probably not run into a version of that ever before. So maybe tell us, what is accountability and what do you do as an accountability coach?
Really good question, because I think that's where most people don't go off the rails. They just don't understand what accountability means. But it's one of those really funny words that you hear all the time. The newspapers talk about it, business talks about it, sporting players get it spoken about, politicians. People don't really understand the context of what it means. In most cases, it means getting you to commit to doing something that you say you're going to do. That's really it in a nutshell, because as individuals, we're responsible for things and accountable to people. So it's just one-on-one, making sure that you do the things you say you're going to do, whatever those things may be.
Yeah. And that's not always as simple as it seems, is it?
No, it's not. In fact, it's quite complicated, because typically the reasons why people don't do that is because perhaps they're lacking a little self-belief, perhaps they've had issues in the past that have come back to sort of bite them on the ankles and really bothering them. So there's a whole lot of reasons that people just don't do stuff.
And it's a bit like a muscle, isn't it? From what I understand about like that self-belief and self-follow through is like you think in your head, oh, tomorrow morning I'm going to get up and go to the gym. And every morning that you don't do that, your trust in yourself gets less and less and less and less.
Absolutely, because what you pointed out is a really good example of if you don't follow through, then you know you've got permission to do it. Good example, I didn't do the gym last time, so it's okay for me to not do it tomorrow. So you end up just sort of self-perpetuating really bad freaking habits.
Yeah. Why do we struggle to hold ourselves accountable? What's the most common one you see?
Yeah, the most common one is overwhelm. So that's where we all have the right intentions. We all start from the right place and we say a particular task can be anything. Yes, of course, I'll do that. And all of a sudden that task gets bundled up with the 7 others that you've promised or you've committed to or you've needed to put your hand up for. And you just get so bogged down with all that stuff, you can't see a way clear to move forward. And the worst thing about that is that what happens is when you don't move forward, it affects your self-belief. And you start to question, am I good enough? Do I have the ability to do that? And the problem is that all we're doing is freezing with paralysis and it becomes procrastination. And we've all procrastinated on stuff in the past. It's so frustrating.
Yeah.
So if we do see that we're procrastinating on something, how do we then start to move forward from that point?
Yeah, great question, Nathan. So the thing is, right, that we need to understand that we are procrastinating over it in the first place. So until we can take action, we actually have to understand what it is and notice how that's affecting us. And, it can be something as simple as you could be working really hard in your job, but you don't feel like you're getting anywhere and you're not making those inroads and those positive steps towards moving forward. And so the best thing you can do is really stop and work out what's the very first thing I need to do. I just need to get some momentum, right? I just want to start to move forward. And quite often when we set really big, unmanageable goals, perhaps they're unachievable, but we don't think that. We don't really work backwards from that goal to deconstruct what are all the little things I need to do along the way to make that happen. And so we just get caught up in our own vicious circle and we don't get to move forward.
I mean, accountability is one of those things where it applies to the smallest of things, like I'm going to take my dog for a walk, right through to like I said I was going to do this thing in our household, like go do the food shopping or call that maintenance person or whatever those kind of like commitments are. But I mean, you're on the Date Forever podcast and we chat about that relationship with self and dating yourself forever, and not just in the warm, fluffy way, but in that getting to know yourself on a deeper and deeper level, day after day, week after week, month after month. But then also that relationship with your chosen person, the person that you've decided that you want to do life with. So when we find ourselves in a place where we're struggling with accountability and we're saying that we're going to do something and then not doing it, saying we're going to do it, not do it, and that like loop of frustration, it's not just frustrating for yourself when you're in it, but it's frustrating for your partner. So I'd love to hear your take on this. Like, how does accountability show up in our relationships and what are some of the things that we should be doing and should not be doing?
Great question. Really, really good question. So the real ideal scenario is to have a partner that you can communicate with. Now, your partner, and we should all be sharing our goals with our partner and enjoying the journey together, because quite often as individuals, we set ourselves a goal and we don't tell anybody about it. And we don't tell anybody about it because we're afraid of not delivering on it and letting other people down. But we're also letting ourselves down. So if I have a goal or a task, it can be really simple as every Wednesday night, I put the rubbish bins out at home. I put the rubbish bins out because they're heavy and my wife struggles with them. But she reminds me every Wednesday that the rubbish bins need to go out, not because she's niggling and whinging and telling Darren, you've got to do the rubbish bins, because I've realised I need her to help me be accountable for that task. I'm responsible for taking out the rubbish bins, but I'm accountable to people. So she reminds me of that. And so she says, don't forget tonight, you've got to do the rubbish bins. And I'm grateful that she's told me that, because I can then get my act in gear and do what I need to do. But it's communicating with someone, sharing the goal in the first place, having them be part of that journey with you, and being able to get them to help you achieve whatever it is, that task you want to achieve. And that's why having an accountability partner or someone to hold you accountable is so critical to all of this. Imagine the scenario that if I said to you, Nathan, tomorrow morning, you and I are going to go to the gym at 7 o'clock, right? And I wake up, we both set our alarms, and I've made a commitment to you. I'm not going to let you down. So what ends up happening is that I could wake up in the morning with a bit of a headache, or I had a big night the night before, or the dog ran away and I opened the gate, the dog flew off. I'm not going to let you down and just not turn up. I've made a commitment to you that I'm going to go to gym and meet you there at 7 o'clock. You've made the same commitment to me. We're both in this together. So it's really, really critical that we have someone we can commit to. So your partner in a relationship is ideal for that.
Yeah. So how do we go about holding that person accountable? And is that a healthy dynamic if and when someone slipped into that kind of no follow through habit?
Or maybe that overwhelmed scenario of feeling like they've got too much on their plate and not knowing what to tackle first.
Yeah. So the idea of communication to me is critical in everything. In relationships, my own experience, absolutely 100%. So if I've taken on a particular task and I'm starting to wrestle with it, then I'm going to talk about it with my partner. I'm going to talk about it with my wife to make sure that she can see something through a different set of eyes, because the eyes I'm looking through are the ones that are got so many things going on and I can't see stuff clearly. So having someone to share it with, to work through it with, is absolutely critical. And I know from being married myself, and my wife doesn't want to be my teacher. She's not my mother. She doesn't want to do any of that stuff. She wants me to acknowledge a commitment that I've made. It can be anything. Acknowledge that commitment I've made and make sure I follow it up.
Yeah. We've talked about this on the show before, but how that deterioration of trust is really like the termites in the house. It still might look okay, but it's eaten away with these tiny little micro moments of, lack of follow through of you said you would do this, you didn't do it. My trust has dropped a point, and then it drops a point again and drops a point again and drops a point again. I know we've chatted to couples in the past where this has been a really big struggle point, and someone has stepped into that role of being coach to their partner, and you're like, this is not fun anymore. I'm just holding you accountable to all of the things that you said you would do, but you're not doing. And then little termites are building.
I know, the little termites, and the memory holds those little moments, and they get to a point where they build up, and then it's like a bucket, it overflows, and things may not ever get back to the way they were. But it is incumbent on both parties in the relationship, the person who's making the commitment and the partner, to talk through those commitments together to make sure that it's like checking in on somebody. How are you going with that? Can I help you with anything? Can I spend some time and review it with you?
Yeah.
It can be on any task.
Yeah.
So Nathan and I have this thing where we do an annual game plan every year. We generally do it right at the end of winter. End of spring coming into summer.
End of November.
End of November.
Yeah.
So we have that annual game plan. We take 1 or 2 days to plan out what our priorities are for the next year. We set some goals. The last 2 years we've done 21 for 21, and this year 22 for 22. And if we don't set up sort of these checkpoints along the year, we'll get to late in the year and be like, totally forgot about that list.
Where's that year gone?
Yeah, but the last few years particularly, we've been quite good at doing both a monthly and then a seasonal check-in, and to be okay, with these next 90 days, what are the things we set these big 22, but which ones are we focusing on for the next 90 days and who's going to play lead on them? And
and what's everybody's role in achieving that goal?
Yeah, and that's been an absolute game changer for us. We've been really consistent on it the last couple of years, but before we would set the big goals, but then not the checkpoints along the way.
And not ever break it down into those small little pieces that you can just chip away at.
Yeah, because if you set a goal, I'll give you a really good example. When I was sorting out my current book, I needed to get some author photos. It's like a little photo on the back cover. And I said to my kids, hey, I love my boys to death, but they are so brutally honest. I said, boys, I'm going to get some author photos done. And they said, Dad, it's COVID. You look like a freaking you look like a freaking rissole. And I went, what?
Michelin Man version of Daz.
Exactly. And they said, Dad, come on, you're working from home, you're standing in front of the fridge, looking at the fridge every day. And they were absolutely spot on. And whilst we laugh about it now, I knew at that point that they triggered something that I need to take action. So I thought to myself, what do I need to do to get to that end goal of having the photos and being proud of them? Well, the first thing is I need to lose some weight. It's COVID. We were in lockdown in Melbourne at the time.
You were in government mandate lockdown forever.
I know. And so I thought, well, I can't go to the gym anymore because I can't go to gym. So what can I do to fix that problem? So I went and bought some cross trainer off Amazon, got it delivered in a box, put it all together. So I thought, okay, at least I can get some exercise happening. I then identified what were the things and I sat down with my wife and we had a really good conversation about it, and it was an honest conversation. You're not making the right decisions of the stuff you're putting in your mouth. I thought, okay, so I need to do some exercise here. How is all this going to work? And I talk about in my book that there was a study done in the US about the probability of achieving your goals. And that I followed step by step to lose some weight, to be proud enough for that photo so I didn't look like a rissole.
Now, this is an audio-only medium for most people, but we're looking at Daz and he looks great.
Thank you. And I've a year and a half on and I've kept the weight off.
Congrats.
So we have a great result at the end. But what I did was I deconstructed my goal. So we talked about earlier of starting and working backwards. I then identified that I have a 10% probability of completing my goal, right, if I just have a goal. So I need to lose weight. My probability goes to 25% if I consciously decide I'm going to do it. Well, my kids are just, they're calling me early on it, that you look like a rissole. That's just not the look you want to put out. So my probability goes to 40% if I can decide when I'm going to do that.
Put a deadline to it.
Put a deadline onto it. So I knew this was in about June. My book was coming out at Christmas time in January. I needed to have my author photos done by the first weekend of November in Melbourne. So that gave me sort of 6-month window. So I'm now starting to decide how this is all going to shape up. So my probability based on that study is still only at 40%. But what's a real game changer is it goes to 50% if I plan how I'm going to do it. So I decided this, right, what I need to do is not drink booze every night of the week. I'm just going to drink it on weekends.
Oh, you and me. That's my rule too. Yeah.
How good is that?
Yeah.
So I stopped drinking booze Monday to Friday and I was just having a drink on a weekend. The other thing I was doing is I'm not going to eat bread anymore. That's just going to go straight to my gut because I'm not getting the exercise to do the work. Again, like booze, I'll just have bread on weekends, not Monday to Friday. So I'm starting to build a plan here of how I'm going to lose this weight. The real step for me was that your probability goes to 65% if you commit to someone, you're going to do it. So I don't know whether you remember, Sammy, but early on in COVID days, it seems like such a long time ago, Andrew Griffiths and I did the podcast called Let's Kick This Bug in the Nuts.
I do remember this. I came to the very first session that you held. So great.
So we used to have 1,000 people tune in every week to listen to our podcast. And I told 1,000 people then that I was going to lose weight and what my goal was, because I needed to have people, I needed to commit to people, and I needed them to be sending me text messages going, Daz, how you going? How you getting there? All of a sudden, I've got all these people being my support team.
And cheerleader.
Yeah.
A cheerleader, and they wanting me to be successful. My thought process was never, what if I fail? How am I going to deal with it? My thought process was, I am going to nail this and I'm going to prove to everybody I can do it. I knew I could do it. I just needed to have everybody hold me to account. And so then my probability goes to 95% if I have an accountability appointment with someone that I've scheduled. So I used to meet with Andrew every week and we'd do the weigh-in. And he'd go, Daz, we'd just over the phone, Daz, what do those scars look like?
What do those numbers say?
What do those numbers say? And I go, oh, look, it's a big week. And, I had a burger. Well, you shouldn't have had burgers on Wednesday.
There's
Only
bread.
a weekend treat. It's got bread.
Exactly. And you had a beer with that burger, didn't you? Yeah, I love a beer. And he said, well, you can only do that on weekends. So he's holding me accountable. So at the end of the process, I end up losing 12 kilograms.
Woohoo!
Woo! Yay! And I've been able to maintain that weight all the way through because I'm still doing those things that worked in the past. So this process can be applied to anyone, anything, in any framework if you just communicate with other people and talk about what you want to do.
Yeah. Daz, can you recap them for us?
Sure. So we go to 10% probability if I actually have a goal or an idea. My probability goes to 25% if I consciously decide I'm going to do it. Probability goes to 40% if I decide when I'm going to do it. So that's that date and that deadline we talked about before, Sammy. It goes to 50% if I plan how I'm going to do this exercise. So I know what steps I need to take, what are the things I need to repeat on a regular basis. 65% probability is mine if I commit to someone. It's not just one person. If you can commit to your partner, is great. Commit to everybody you can. Tell them what you're going to do because people are going to want you to succeed. So you get all that combined positive energy behind you. And your probability goes to 95% if you commit to someone and have a specific accountability appointment with someone who's going to hold you to account. So you might meet with your partner and agree that every Sunday night we're going to review what task we've got on for the following week. The first part of that would be to look at what we've achieved against what we said we were going to. So what did I say I was going to do this week? So you get together with your partner once a week and you have that conversation. This is what I said I was going to do. They're done. Kind of struggling with this one here. And you talk about it. Break it down. Get someone else's perspective. And then you talk about what you're now going to set for the next week. And it works beautifully.
And you smash it like a pinata.
Like a pinata with a cricket bat.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing.
So, Daz, I want to know, how big of a role does the reward play in setting those kind of goals and having external accountability? Because one of my favorite sayings and mantras that I try and live by is that what gets celebrated gets repeated.
A reward is really, really critical. And it's one area that people don't do enough of. They don't celebrate the victories or the wins or the little monumental difficulties that they've had to work through. So if you understand what the goal is and you understand why I've set the goal. So let's go back to the analogy we talked about with my book. I needed to have a photo on my book that was going to represent me proudly, that I felt really good about myself. I did not feel good about how I looked before. I was perhaps in denial of it. I knew that it was, it's not happening down on the waistline at the moment, but I just felt really connected to making it right. If you don't have a connection to it, you're not going to hang in there for when that roller coaster is a really rocky road. But the thing that I love, the thing that's really easy to do is set consequences with a person who's holding you accountable. So those consequences can be something as simple as, and I had a thing with a friend of mine. We both barracked for different football teams. And we were talking about a goal that we both had in our own businesses. And the deal for me was, if I didn't achieve my goal, I would have to put his football jumper on, stand in my football jumper's queue, in my football jumper's team queue, and buy a membership ticket.
Oh, you don't want to do that, do you?
Don't want to do that. And we used that for 12 months. There was no cost.
Just a lever.
A lever that triggered me, and it made me realise that I need to stay focused on that goal, because goals aren't easy to achieve. Otherwise, they wouldn't be a goal, right? You need something that's going to help you stay focused through that roller coaster.
So that's interesting, because you were using almost a punishment instead of a reward.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes punishments can be fantastic. I have clients I work with who say if they can't do a particular report or task next week because they've been promising it for the last 3, they're going to go and make a donation to the political party they most hate.
I heard this one recently, actually, that somebody else had a goal that if they didn't achieve it, they had to contribute to Trump's election campaign or something.
How much? That's going to be a trigger, right?
Yeah.
So it's about you and your partner sitting down with your goal and making sure it's really important to both of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, getting that leverage. Like, what is it?
Exactly. And it's connected to your future together. So you both have skin in the game of that result.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So something interesting is that I know that Sammy and I sometimes aren't the best people to be able to hold each other accountable. Like, just one more episode and we end up watching another 6 episodes. so how do we know when we might not be the best people to hold each other accountable and when we should be getting some external accountability coaching or some external help?
Yeah, look, a really interesting question. So not everybody has the ability or a wonderful open relationship that they can communicate with their partners. And if my kids want business advice, they can't shut dad up, but they're not going to listen to what I say. So I'm just better off getting my friend to go and have a conversation with them because I'll listen to my friend, they won't listen to me. There's certain things that you feel uncomfortable about. You've got to make that decision together. Typically, it's when the other partner says, hey, this is not working, right? You're not doing those things you say you're going to do. I can't help you anymore because our relationship is deeper than that and you're not listening to me and we're not getting anywhere with this. So let's get some external help. And typically a great example of that is financial advice. You know, my wife and I have had a financial person who's steered us in the right direction for years. We have review meetings. We make sure that we're on top of all the goals that we set, that we achieve them. And it's a third party doing it because my wife and I are not strong in that area with each other.
Yeah, I love that. And it's kind of that thing, yeah. You let me off the hook and I'll let you off the hook. And then we're both off the hook and nobody needs to know. And yet we don't get our goal.
No one's getting anywhere. We're not achieving anything. But what you want is and I'm sure you two guys have it, is a partner that supports you with this and can ride those bumps with you and see when you're starting to exhibit the signs of being overwhelmed, right? Short-tempered, typically under the pump, you might say so. Me, I'm dropping 4-letter words like a wharfie because it's my way of releasing the situation. I just need to get out of my own head. And my wife steps in beautifully and we work together really well as a team and it's been fantastic.
Yeah, I really like that you shared that. So for the most part, I think Nath and I are a pretty good team. And I'm going to throw you under the bus here for a minute. I'm sorry. I love you. Little asterisk there. But like probably a couple years ago, Nath was really at a dead end with his career. And he had been talking about wanting to make some changes, a couple of conversations he needed to have. And I was attempting to hold him accountable to taking some of those steps. Like, hey, how did you go? Did you reach out to that person? Did you do the thing?
How did you feel about that, Nathan?
A little bit picked on or yeah.
He wasn't ready.
No, I probably wasn't quite ready. And I guess I didn't feel good in my own self as well because I knew that I hadn't done the things that I said that I was going to do.
And did you know why you hadn't done those things?
Not really at the time, but I think it was a nervousness about changing roles. A comfortableness in where I currently was, though I knew that it wasn't really serving me.
Yeah. So you can't force people to do stuff, right? So we laughed about wearing a different football jumper and donating to a political party, but Nathan's heart's not in that and he's not ready for it. He needs to work through those barriers to getting him ready for it. And perhaps you, Sammy, putting that pressure on him made him more not wanting to move closer to it, but more insulated because he felt the pressure on it. He couldn't willingly do it.
Yeah, I definitely think that's what was happening at the time. But then in saying that, I was also getting so frustrated. Like, I don't know how to help you get unstuck here. But what we ended up doing was Nath went and spoke to an actual career coach who specialized in his thing and got him unstuck. I was like, should have spent that money months ago and moved past that problem a whole lot faster.
Yeah, but there's nothing you could have done in that exercise, right?
No.
It doesn't matter how you positioned it, just not going to convince him to do it. He needed to do it himself and he felt a level of comfort with an expert in that field.
Yeah, but my learning from that is that I should have stepped out of it sooner. I should have gone, okay, clearly I shouldn't be playing your coach and your accountability buddy in this domain. Yeah. And I'm going to stop asking and I'm going to delegate this to a coach and you can call that coach whenever you're ready, but I'm not going to ask anymore. I'm done. So the learning, I should have tapped out sooner.
Sure. But yeah, and I think we all learn by our past experiences. You know now how that in a situation that was frustrating for you, Sammy, in the past, Nathan got there himself because he got an external person that clicked with him. So next time you have this scenario, it's straight to let's get an expert.
Yeah.
Yep.
straight to get an expert every time.
It's easy to do, but you'll get the outcome much quicker.
Yeah,
But
totally.
sometimes people have to go through that to actually get them to realise that they need an expert. Because if you go to an expert too soon and you're not willing to lean in, then it's a waste of money.
Yeah.
You're not going to get the results anyway.
You're not. But I was listening to the podcast where you interviewed Annette Desham.
Yeah.
And you talked about responsibility, taking responsibility. And one of the things you did, you talked about, Sammy, was your 30 minutes of yoga a day for 30 days on 30 consecutive days.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. How did you do that?
I committed with 100% certainty. Actually, that's not true because it took me 2 goes. The first time I had a crack at it, I think I got to day like 20 and then I injured myself. So the next time I had a go at it, I had real certainty. But one of the things that I did do was I posted on social media every day, whether or not it was a pose or a short little time-lapse video, day X of X.
Love it.
I didn't tell them that they were my accountability buddies, but the people who were responding to those posts, then they were on board and they were holding me accountable and cheering and stuff. And I also got some feedback from other people who started their own challenges. So then that felt really motivating because I was like, I'm leading by example here. There's no way I'm letting that go. Yeah. So, and that challenge was so great for me. It was I'm really glad that I did that and had the follow through.
So what was your motivating fact to set it out in the first place and then come back and give it a second go when you injured yourself?
Yeah.
That in itself is wonderful.
So I had heard of someone doing a 30-minute a day yoga challenge in the past and it had healed quite a few of their things for them. And I was like, all right, I've got a couple things that I want to work on. So I was like, I think that's going to be a good way to approach it. So I had a role model of someone who had got a result. So I knew that I wanted that result. That worked for them. I'm going to try that. Yeah. So the first time I was pretty disappointed because it was the first time I did it. I was doing it in a studio. So I was literally going to a yoga studio and showing up. And it was very disruptive to my life because the class times were not right. And that was really clunky. So the next time I tried it, I was like, all right, I'm going to find a digital online coach that I can follow and do it on demand. Yeah. So I learned from that experience. I was like, that's not going to work for me. I need something a bit more flexible. Yeah. So I did learn from it. It was really about carving out intentional time for my mind and my body every single day to establish that it is possible. And no matter what is going on in my world, I can and have prioritize 30 minutes.
Yeah, fantastic. And then when you identify that you need to allocate 30 minutes in your schedule each day to do that, how did you record that? Did you have some sort of diary system, some sort of tick box list?
Yeah, I had 2 accountability buddies. I had my girlfriend Shani and my mate Josh, and we had a little group chat and we were checking it off every day.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Then we also had a checklist on the back of our door as well. When we were leaving the house, you would see it every single time we would do it.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
And we had that for a few of our other goals as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you have a goal that you share with people, you have a plan of how you're going to achieve it, you break it down into those little steps, and then we can put a date on when each of those steps need to be achieved. You can achieve just about anything. Something realistic. We're not talking about, I want to fly to the moon tomorrow. That's just not going to happen.
Unless you know Richard Branson can call in a favour.
Well, yeah, but even so, you probably won't be able to go to the moon tomorrow. So as long as these things are specific, the old SMART goal scenario works really well. Specific, measurable, attainable, relevant. So you wanting to do your yoga for 30 days was really important to your health and your fitness and your mind. You were connected to it. And have it time bound. So a date is so critical in all this stuff.
Yeah. Love that.
Yeah, it's good.
Hey, so Daz, you've mentioned a couple of times throughout the show your beautiful wife, and tell us you are about to celebrate a very big marriage milestone. Tell us what it is.
Yeah. So the end of this month, 31st of March, we're going to be married 37 years.
Isn't that
It's bizarre, isn't it?
Yeah, it's amazing. So what I would love to know to round this out is what are the handful of things that you've got in your relationship, whether or not they're daily, weekly, monthly, annual practices that help you keep that relationship fueled up?
Well, the first thing is we communicate really well. So we scream and argue and carry on like everybody does, because I think that's part of good communication, is being able to get it out and put it out on the table. But we're really into making time for each other. So we would sit down and plan our month out every month. We sit there with our diaries and we look at where we're going and who we're seeing and where the gaps are that we'd like to fill. We make sure that we have time in there for our family, so our kids and their partners, to incorporate them, because family is incredibly important to both of us. But we also make time where she loves yoga and does it every day. It's really important to her. And fortunately, her yoga teacher is my best buddy and he's my golf partner.
Works well.
So it works incredibly well. But we make up time to find and give each other the space to do the things we want to do. I'll go and have burgers, sometimes have a burger on a Wednesday and a beer, and I go and do that with my mates because it's good to catch up with them and it's good for us to just talk. So we still have individual lives, but we're together and we have one particular focus, and we're both of the belief that we're here for whatever the length of time is, and we're just going to make it a great one because we don't want to have regrets at the end.
Sounds amazing.
I love that. And that's a great example of a system that creates accountability.
Yeah. We do it frequently. Even now with my business, right? I've had multiple businesses that we've sold and moved on from. But even in my current business now, end of every month, I produce a profit and loss for my business and I leave it on our bed. Because she says, it's nearly the end of the month, we're going to do a profit and loss. And I have this race because I want to give it to her and go, check the bed. It's already lying on the bed. But we talk about our finances in that manner. We review where we say we're going to be and what we're at and where we're having difficulties. We try and overcome those and support each other through it. But communication is the key for us, and compromise. How I see the world, she doesn't see the world. Even after 36 years, we have very different opinions, but we respect that her opinion is different to mine and vice versa. And how can we, with those different opinions, get to the result we want?
And gosh, wouldn't it be boring if you were both the same?
She just ripped it. Good boy. I was just thinking she would hate that. She would hate that. Our life would be miserable.
Yeah, magic comes from polarity.
And I think we've got a pretty magical relationship.
Yeah, I think so too, with 36 years, and not just 36 years, but happy. Like really, even just looking at you, you're lighting up talking about your relationship, and that's incredible to see. So thank you so much for taking the time to share a little bit about what you do and how it works and your relationship.
Can I tell you one other thing I do?
Absolutely.
Go for it.
Every Friday night, I buy her flowers on the way home from work, or go to the flower shop if I'm working from home, and I give her the flowers. And she'll say, but it's not every Friday night, but most. And I know what her favourite flowers are, and they're really important to her. So I go and do that for her most Friday nights.
Yeah, gifts are my love language. So that would blow my mind. Nudge, nudge.
You listening, Nathan?
Yeah. Yep. I'm
Make
listening.
notes.
I'm
Yeah.
listening.
And that's financially, that's such a small contribution to the overall health of your relationship, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I do it. The monetary value is not the issue. She loves flowers, right? They make her day. So why wouldn't I want to keep doing the things to her that put a smile on her face?
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing.
Great.
Oh, Daz, thank you so much for joining us. To say thank you, we have given 100 days of clean water to some students in Zambia. This project is incredible because it not just allows for clean water, but what that means is that some of the girls who would otherwise spend their day walking back and forth to collect water, they get the opportunity to go to school. So it's a multifaceted project. So thank you so much.
Oh, wonderful. What a lovely gesture that is. And you're going to make a difference. Wow, that's enormous.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's been possible via our partnership with Buy One, Give One. So thank you so much.
No worries. So Darren, if people want to connect with you or learn a little bit more about what you do, how should they do that?
Yeah, look, the best way to connect with me is to go and visit my website. So you'll head to tickthoseboxes.com.au. And from there, you can test your own accountabilities. You can take the accountability scorecard to see how really accountable you are. And from there, you can look at my book or perhaps enroll into one of my programs.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And I think it's worth noting that the accountability guy still needed an accountability buddy.
100%. 100%. Look at the famous sports people as great examples. Roger Federer still has a coach. How important is that? And we all need to get better and fine-tune our skills, because there's a lot of things that are trying to grab our attention every day, and we want to stay focused and be the best version of ourselves we can be.
Yeah. So if you've got something that you want to get done, a pinata you want to smash
with a cricket bat,
and you need a little bit of help, I definitely recommend reaching out to Darren and getting some help. Get an accountability buddy, get an accountability coach so that you can hit some of those goals and achieve what you want to get done in this life.
100%. That sounds fantastic. What a great idea. Who do we know who you can call? Me. Pick me.
Thank you so much for joining us, Daz.
Thank you for your time, guys. It was great fun.
Thanks heaps for joining us. If you love what we're doing here and want more, subscribe to the Date Forever podcast to make sure you never miss an ep. Come and hang out with us and other awesome couples who are fueling up their relationships in the Thriving Couples Collective Facebook group, or check us out at fuelcollective.com.au. Until next time, keep on dating, because better relationships equal a better world.